All right, boys and girls, it's time for chapter 6. I started writing my novel on April 10th. You need me? Oh, okay. I'm just recording. It was the night of my mom's parent-teacher conference with Miss Sims. It took more than a week for Miss Sims and my mom to get together. That's because my mom was busy. She really did have a plan to rehearse for. Of course, it wasn't a big hit show in the city, but it was still a real play. You see, my mom always wanted to be an actress, so she tried out for a big part in a play that was in a little theater group in town being put on in the church basement. Well, she got the part. Maybe she'll be a big movie star someday. While my mom and Miss Sims were trying to figure out when to meet, I was trying to figure out what to write a novel about. That part was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I have read every book ever written. Well, not every book, but a lot of books. But reading someone else's book is pretty easy. Figuring out how to write one yourself is not so easy at all. The stories I make up to keep from getting bored are pretty good, but they're awfully short. Novels are 200 pages long. I don't know how writers make their books so long. I thought about all the books I'd ever read. I thought about what I liked best about each book. I liked history books, but to write one, you have to know what was going on in the old days. You have to know what people wore and what kind of houses and machines they had then. If I wanted to write a book like that, I would actually have to read some real history books. That's the same as doing my homework. Miss Sims is very sneaky, you know. That left the love stories or the mysteries. I didn't feel like writing a love story. They have people going to all these fancy restaurants and taking planes to Europe and stuff like that. The fanciest restaurant I was ever in was Nell's Steakhouse on Route 43. It was nice, but it sure wasn't very romantic. And I've never been in an airplane in my life. You have to have done something in order to write about it, I think. That left writing a mystery. Now, I think mysteries are great, but murder mysteries are the best. The problem is, I don't know anything about guns or knives or poison or getaway cars either. So what do I know about? I only know about one thing, and that's Southside Elementary School. That's not much. After thinking for a week, I still hadn't decided what to write about. I was feeling really gloomy about it one day on the playground. I sat on the swings and watched all the kids run around. Then I started to think about the kids and what they always did. You see, each kid has some kind of interesting, weird habit. Marty Deegan collects rocks. John Boyles asks a zillion questions. Karen Wiggs sniffles all day long. Warren Peach always says he's hungry. The more I thought about them, the more interesting each kid got. Suddenly, I thought about what would happen if we were all stuck together on an island someplace, sort of like the Swiss Family Robinson. I wondered if any of our habits would come in handy on the island. Maybe I wasn't looking at people right. Maybe rock collecting could actually be helpful sometimes. That's when it came to me. I would write a book about the whole class going on a long trip, maybe to Disney World. Then the tour boat gets hijacked by some bad guys, and we drive them all crazy with our weird singing, noise making, back talking, and whining about being hungry all the time. Finally, the hijackers put us off on some deserted island in the Florida Keys because they can't stand having us around for another second. And we all managed to survive and build shelters and stuff until we got rescued. I went back to the classroom. I made notes all during math. I made notes during assembly. I even made notes on the bus home. I forgot all about the parent-teacher conference until I got home. Then I saw the note my mom had left on the refrigerator. It said, "Seeing Miss Sims tonight after work. Be home later. Eat the leftover meatloaf if you're hungry. Love, Mom. Whoops, this was a big night. Suddenly, I felt awful. I wished I had done my homework like a regular kid. I wondered if my mom would be mad at me, or worse, she might be worried about me. She had enough things to worry about without having to worry about me, too. But just when I was beginning to get upset about upsetting my mom, I remembered something I wanted to put in my book. It was neat how easy it was to forget about my own problems when I had something really fun to think about, like writing. I decided I would make Warren Peach the pest that drives the hijackers totally off the deep end. All Warren ever does is ask about food. That could drive even the worst criminal crazy. As I was making notes, I remembered that Miss Sims should be in the book too. After all, why would the whole class go on a trip without their teacher? I decided she would get sick or something. If Miss Sims couldn't take care of us, she would have to figure out a way to take care of ourselves and her too. I just couldn't wait another second. I got out a new, nice notebook Miss Sims had given me to start my novel in. On the first page, I wrote, "The worst class trip ever, Chapter 1. When I started writing, I couldn't write fast enough to keep up with the story inside my head. It was like a movie running right behind my eyes. I was afraid I would forget how I wanted it to go. So I grabbed this scrap of paper and made some more notes. I called myself Amber in the story. I got to the part where I noticed these really weird looking men on the boat. They were wearing long raincoats, which was totally dumb in Florida in June. Their coats were all lumpy. I said to Marty Deegan, who I called Tex in the story, that unless those guys had a really great rock collection under their coats, I would be willing to bet they were carrying submachine guns. Just then the door slammed. My mom was home. I looked up and noticed that it was dark outside already. When I looked at the clock, I saw that it was almost 7:30. I had been writing for 3.5 hours, nonstop. I had even forgotten to get hungry. I hadn't worried about what Miss Sims was saying to my mom. I had forgotten about everything but the story. But now I remembered everything. I was hungry, and I didn't really want to talk to my mom about the parent-teacher conference. Before I could escape into the bathroom or the closet, Mom came into the room. And there's a picture of her writing. "Oh, Janie, you sweet little thing," she said, giving me a kiss on the head. I guess I didn't have to tell you that my mom doesn't call me Babette. "Hi, Mom," I said, looking glum. "Miss Sims is very nice," said my mom, "and she thinks a lot of you, too." I almost fell off my chair. "She does?" I said. "Oh, yes," Mom said, "and I'm going to call you Babette from now on. I never knew you didn't like to be called Janie." I felt pretty bad right then. After all, my mom had named me Jane. I didn't want to tell her I thought her idea of a good name was dumb. "It will be like having a stage name," she said warmly. "Lots of actresses have them. Maybe you can help me think up a good stage name for myself, too." "You mean for when you get famous?" I said. "Of course," said my mom. "Now come to the kitchen with me while I make some dinner." Here comes the bad part. I helped her chop carrots for the salad. This is when she tells me what a rotten kid I am. But that isn't what happened at all. "Miss Sims says you are a gifted child," Mom said as she stuck the meatloaf in the microwave. "Please get out the knives and forks." My mom does that a lot. She tells you a story all broken up with chores and complaints and stories about something else. She says she feels you need special teaching, or perhaps you should skip ahead a grade. "I don't want to get skipped ahead," I said. "I'm already the littlest kid in 3rd grade. In 4th grade, I'd look like a midget." "Don't worry," said Mom. I told her the same thing, but she still thinks she might need something extra because you're bored with 3rd grade work. Well, I knew that. I just didn't know that anyone else did. And she told me you were writing a book," said Mom. "I would love to see what you've written so far." "Actually, I'm a little hurt you didn't tell me about it." "I didn't start writing it until tonight," I said. Besides, I thought you would be mad at me for not doing my homework. Miss Sims said that many gifted children don't do homework, and they get bad grades for that reason, said my mom. She says they are far ahead of everyone in class, so they get bored. And then they get lost in their own thoughts. Well, that certainly was true. Miss Sims told me that Albert Einstein, who was the most smartest scientist ever and won the Nobel Peace Prize for physics, got a C in physics when he was in school, said my mom with a laugh. Does that make you feel better? It sure did. After dinner, Mom read my story. I told her what was going to happen next. She liked it. I think you should show Miss Sims what you've written, she said as she tucked me into bed. I don't want her to think you aren't doing anything at all for homework, you know. The next day, I handed the notebook to Miss Sims right before lunch. So you finally did some homework? Marty asked as we went outside for lunch. No, that was my novel, I answered. John Bowles was walking right behind us. He heard what I said, so he butted in, of course. Kids don't write novels, he said. Miss Sims asked me to write a novel instead of doing the homework all the rest of you do. I said, I just gave her the first chapter. Liar, liar, chicken fryer, John yelled. Then he ran off and told Mary Beth, who told Susie, who told Warren, who told the whole world. Soon all the kids in class were laughing and pointing at me. There were probably some kids laughing and pointing who weren't in our class. Finally, Mary Beth came over to Susie. This is the biggest lie Jane has ever told, said Susie. Is it bigger than the story about her father being a football star? Asked Mary Beth. Yes, it's even bigger than the one she told her about her mom acting in a Broadway play, said Susie. It's bigger because we can prove that this story is a lie. Then she and Mary Beth walked off, giggling. Marty looked upset. Don't listen to them, Babette, he said. I believe you. It's true about the novel, Marty, I said. But it makes no difference if you tell people the truth or not. They still don't believe you. So why should I bother? Maybe it's like the fable, said Marty. What fable, I said, stomping off the edge of the playground. I didn't want to be around those creepy kids anymore. Marty shuffled after me. He was looking at the ground, only this time he wasn't looking for rocks. Remember that story about the little boy who cried wolf? He said. Marty looked up. His face was bright red. You mean the one where the kid makes up so many stories about the wolf eating the sheep, then the wolf finally shows up and nobody believes him? I said. That's the one, said Marty. Maybe it's like that. Well, I'll show them, I said. When we got back inside from recess, Miss Sims was waiting for me. This is wonderful, Babette, she said. Would it embarrass you to read it aloud in class? Not at all, I said. As a matter of fact, I'd like to read the whole book to the class as I write it. That's a great idea, said Miss Sims. I want their suggestions, I said sweetly. But that wasn't all I wanted. I wanted to prove that this time I was telling the truth. And besides, it might be fun to see how everyone felt when they figured out they were the crazy, annoying kids I was writing about. One chapter left.